Okay, section 8.5, adding and subtracting rational expressions. Back to the regular fractions, because I know you know these. When you need a common denominator, or remember, you need common denominators to add or subtract the tops. So since we have a common denominator here, I could just say 9 minus 3 gives us 6. 6 over 11 is reduced. That one's done. Down here, we don't have a common denominator, so we have to make it a common denominator. So you'll ask yourself what the common denominator will be, and you'll find out that the LCD in this case is 12, because that's the smallest number that both of those numbers go into. So then you have to say what times 6 is going to get me to 12, because we want to rewrite it so that both of our bottoms are 12. So what times 6 gets me to 12? Well, it's times 2. If I do it on the bottom, I have to do it on the top. Gives me an 8 up there. What times 4 gets me to 12? That's a 3. If I do it on bottom, I have to do it on top. Gives me a 9 there. So then 8 plus 9 is now 17 over 12. If you don't have a common denominator, you need to find the common denominator and then go ahead and do the problem. So in example 1, do we have a common denominator? Well, absolutely. They're both z plus 2, so that's all good, which just means that we need to add our tops. So 3z plus z is 4z. And then no number plus -4 is a -4 over our bottom, which was z plus 2. Now, we can factor a 4 out of the top, but if I factor a 4 out of this top, it's not going to help me cancel anything out here, because when I factor it out, I'm left with z minus 1. Z minus 1 isn't going to cancel with anything down there. And while the 4 may be able to go out with the 2, since there's nothing there, it doesn't work that way. So since factoring won't help, it's okay to leave this as our answer. We don't have to factor. However, down here, it's a different story. You'll see. So we have a common denominator. That's great. All we have to do is this time subtract our tops. And because it's subtraction, I'm going to tell you to go ahead and put parentheses around that top so you make sure you get it distributed all the way through. So on top, that's going to give me 3z minus z plus 4 over my z plus 2. So now I can do my calculation. 3z minus z is 2z, and then my plus 4 over z plus 2. Now, if I look at this and I take a 2 out of the top, I do have a 2 plus z plus 2 left on the top, which would mean that yes, something would factor. So I need to go ahead and take care of that by factoring out that 2. Now I can cancel these out, and my answer is just 2, which is okay. If you see you can factor, while we could factor up here, that 4 out, it wasn't going to get us anywhere. But factoring down here, that 2 out did get us somewhere. So if you factored anyway up there. Even though it didn't get you anywhere and you left it in its factored form, that would be okay. It's always better to factor even if it doesn't help than to not factor when it would help. So if when in doubt, go ahead and factor it out. But if you can see it's not going to get you anywhere, don't waste your time. Because when you can't see, it's kind of got to go, okay, I'll go ahead and take care of it. Okay, let's look at harder problems. Okay, much harder problems. That's why I needed all the room. Example 3. Okay. 8 over 16r squared minus 3 over 8r minus 1 over r. Do we have a common denominator? No, we don't. Which means we're going to need one. Now, it is possible, if you see this, that you could go ahead and simplify this if you wanted to. But considering all that I see, I'm afraid that we just end up complicating things again whenever we got our LCD. So we're just going to leave it the way it is. So first we need to find our LCD. This is when you're supposed to shout out what it is. I mean, we worked the entire last section on it. Okay. Going to be 16r squared, because that's the smallest number that all those numbers go into, and it's the largest exponent of all of our exponents. So then you have to start asking yourself, we want to make all these bottoms the 16r squared. So I'm going to go ahead and write it down here. So the question is, what's keeping this from looking like that? And the answer is nothing. So that means I don't need to multiply the top times anything. It's fine. Here, what's keeping this from looking like that? Well, it needs another 2r. If I multiplied the bottom by 2r, then that means I got to multiply the top by 2r, which makes this top 6r. This needs a 16r. That means the top would get a 16r, which gives it 16r. Now I have 8 minus 6r minus 16r. So a negative 6r and a negative 16r is a negative 22r over 16r squared. I could factor a 2 out of the top. Will that be able to cancel out with anything on the bottom? Yeah. If I take a 2 out of the top, that leaves me with 4 minus 11r over 16r squared. And the 2 and the 16, since the 16 doesn't have a plus or a minus, that means it's multiplication. That's what will allow you to cancel. So the 2 can go into the 16 8 times. So that leaves me with 4 minus 11r on top and 8r squared on the bottom. Can't cancel out those r's because that minus sign there. since there's an operation there. Remember, it has to be multiplication in order for you to cancel stuff. This is multiplication. This was multiplication. This in here, not so much. So that's your answer. Try a harder one. Remember we talked about how you always want your letters to be first, and here my letter isn't first, and I could rewrite it, but if I rewrote it, I'd get that negative out front, and I don't really want to do that. So I want to train you that when you rewrite it, because it's in the wrong order, you also need to just go ahead and take that -1 out. Think of it as part of your factoring on top and factoring on the bottom, which you really need to do when you start out anyway, because you're trying to find the LCD, right? So when I go to factor this on the bottom, that's going to turn into y plus 3 on top. And then on the bottom, when I go to factor it, first I'm going to take that negative out. That's going to flip places. That'll give me y squared minus 4, because it flips places. Now I can factor out my y squared minus 4 into a y plus 2, y minus 2. So when I go to find my LCD, it's going to be that negative y plus 2, y minus 2. So looking at this one, I already have that. So I don't need to multiply this top by anything. I just have y plus 3 over my negative y plus 2, y minus 2. Over here, I have the y minus 2 part, but I don't have the y plus 2 or the negative. So I need to multiply this top by a negative y plus 2. That gives me a 1 times a negative times a y plus 2. So now, we need to do some combining on the top. My bottoms are the same. Now before we get to me doing this, I want to draw your attention to something I did up here, because I'll do this and I'll shorten it every single time I do it. So over here where we did it, I showed the multiplication on top and on bottom. On top and on bottom. Over here, I just wrote it on top, because we knew what the bottom was going to be. We ask ourselves what it takes, and then that's what I write on top, because that's where I'm really multiplying it by, because we've already done the bottom. So I didn't see the need to write it again. It's a little shortcut that you can take. And every time I'll get a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter. So that was the little shortness that I did here. Down here, I'm going to get a little bit shorter too, because instead of me writing this over and over again, I'm only going to write it once. So I'm going to have my negative y plus 2, y minus 2. Up here, I can go ahead and distribute that negative. So I really get a negative y minus 2. So now I have this thing plus that thing. So y plus negative y means there is no y. 3 plus negative 2 is just a 1. Now, your book is probably going to have the negative out front instead of on the bottom. That's okay. It could have the negative on top instead of on the bottom. It doesn't matter whether this negative sign is on the bottom, out front, or on top. It's all the same thing. As long as they don't have two negative signs there, you're good. Okay. One more. This one is problem number 36. They do not have a common denominator yet. We're going to have to make them have a common denominator, which means we're going to have to find the LCD. Before we can find the LCD, we need to factor our denominators to find out what's really going on. Can't take a GCF out. 2 days multiply together give you 6. I'm feeling 2 and 3. 2 days multiply together give you 20. I'm feeling 4 and 5. I'm feeling I didn't get it right. Because that's 12 and that's 10, and 12 and 10 do not give me a 7, no matter what I do to them. So I'll put my 5 here and my 4 there. That's 15, that's 8. So we're doing a lot better. Needs to be a negative 15, so I can get my negative 7, which makes that a positive 8. Told you got to go with your gut. Check it, but always go with your gut. 3a. Now, remember before how I said when you do a multiplication and division, they want to repeat because they want that commonality to cancel out? Well, when you're doing adding and subtracting, they're going to want to repeat on the bottoms. So it'll be easier to find that common denominator. So when I look at these and I look at this, I bet this one's going to be just like that one. So I'm going to try 4 and 2 to get my 8 to see if it'll work. We don't know that it'll work. We're just trying it. It's a good place to start. So that'll give me 4a. That'll give me 6a. 6 minus 4 does give me 2. I need my 6 to be negative, so my 2 will stay negative when we add the positive 4a. Now, for my LCD, notice how I'm writing it off to the side instead of in the middle of the problem now? Another one of those little shortcut deals. So, has to have everything from this one, 2a minus 5 and 3a plus 4. And then, what do I need to add from this one that isn't already there? Well, that's already in there, but this is not. So I need to add my a minus 2. That's the LCD. So now instead of writing that down twice, I'm just going to write it once. 2a minus 5 times 3a plus 4 times a minus 2. So now the question is, what's here, or what isn't here that is down here? Well, it's the a minus 2. That's what we're missing. So that's what I need to multiply my top by. And then what's not here that's down here, well, the 2a minus 5 is what I need to multiply the top by. So when I do my multiplication over here, I end up with a squared minus 2a. Then minus everything that I get up here. So that's going to give me 4a. Then minus the negative 10 minus negative is going to be plus 10. So that gives me on top, I'll write it out. Take my time. A squared minus 6a plus 10 over my LCD. Now the question is, can we factor the top such that not just can it be factored, but can we factor it such that something will cancel out with something on the bottom? Well, there's no way it's going to be able to cancel here or here because we didn't have a number here. So our beginning is going to always have to be an A. And that's not an A, that's a 2A. Can't have that. Can't have that one. So the question is, could we have this one right here? Well, sign in the back is a plus, which means they both have to be negative, so it's possible. Let's see what would happen. Does it factor that way? Two, and it would have to be a 5 if that worked, and a minus and a minus. That would give us the 5a, and that would give us a 2a, which is not a 6a, but a 7a. Which makes me think, I really kind of want it to be, I wonder if we made a mistake. Just because it'd be great if it did cancel out. That's all I'm saying. It'd be great if it did. I'm not saying that just it would be great if it did. So I'm going to go back, double check everything. So a times a is a squared. A times negative 2, and it really is negative 2. So a times negative 2 is negative 2a. That's all good. 2 times 2a, and it really is 2a minus 5. So 2 times 2a is really 4a. And that really does make it a negative 4a. And then 2 times negative 5 is really negative 10, and that turns it to a plus 10. So I think we're good. I don't think it factors out right. So I don't think that works, which means we can't cancel anything out, which means this is your answer. But you saw how I tried it first. You can't just say that's the answer. You have to actually try and see if it factors. See if it's going to give you what you want. Okay. Let's talk homework and classwork. Classwork. Page 355. Sorry, page 335. Numbers 9, 19, 29, and 39. It's right there. Homework. Numbers 1, 5, 11, 15, 21, 25, 31, 35. And I'll leave it there. Could keep going, but I'll leave it there. Go try those. Let's see how you do. Bye.